In 1926, a French inventor patented a device he claimed could triple crop yields. No chemicals, no machines, just a simple copper wire capturing energy from the sky. Official records, grainy photos, and a British committee all vouched for results like 10-foot corn and monster pumpkins. Then the technology disappeared almost overnight, as if erased from history. We've all been told that bigger harvests require more fertilizer. But what if we traded a law of physics for a bag of chemicals? Here's the science behind one wire and the industry that buried it. This video will show you why this method disappeared and how to bring it back step by step. Justin Christofleau was not a household name. He was a farmer, an experimenter, and a relentless tinkerer born in France in 1865. By the early 1920s, he had spent decades chasing a single idea: that plants could thrive not just on nutrients from the soil, but on invisible energy drawn from the sky. He poured his life into building strange devices: metal rods, spirals, antennas. He staked his reputation on results that defied agricultural orthodoxy. On October 26, 1925, Christofleau filed a patent in Switzerland for what he called the electromagnetic pterocelestial apparatus. The document, stamped CH118648A, was granted the following May. It described a system of copper and magnetic steel plates designed to capture atmospheric electricity and channel it into the earth. This was not backroom theory. The patent is still on record, a legal artifact spelling out every wire, every plate, every connection. Christofleau claimed that with his device, oats grew 5 feet tall and old dying trees burst back to life. He published his findings in books and agricultural journals, inviting anyone to visit his experimental gardens. For Christofleau, the proof was always meant to be public, measured in harvests, not in secret. Photographs from the mid-1920s show vegetables that seem to belong in a different world. Pumpkins wider than barrels, cabbages nearly as tall as a person. These images, published in Christofleau's books and pamphlets, ran in French gardening magazines and local newspapers, often paired with claims of harvests twice the usual size. Yet outside his circle, few could say where these pictures came from or who had verified them. The British Electro-Culture Committee, established in 1918 under the Ministry of Agriculture, took notice. By the early 1920s, the committee was gathering reports, reviewing crop images, and sending observers across Europe with a simple mandate: separate fact from fantasy. Over nearly 2 decades until 1936, the committee collected field photographs, yield records, and testimonials. Their interim reports, stamped not for publication, cataloged everything from giant barley stalks to the peculiar devices sprouting in French gardens. But the files reveal a pattern of unanswered questions. No original negatives or third-party validations for the most dramatic images ever surfaced. The photographs, while persuasive, always seemed to hover between evidence and legend. For every snapshot of a bumper crop, a lingering doubt remained. Could a simple wire and rod truly explain these harvests? The search for scientific proof was only just beginning. To understand how a single wire could do this, you have to understand the invisible river of electricity above every field. The air holds a steady charge, positive in the sky, negative in the soil below. Physicists call this the atmospheric potential gradient. On a clear day, the difference is about 100 volts for every meter you climb. It is not lightning, not a jolt you can feel, but a silent voltage always flowing like a gentle tide. Plants stand right in the middle of this field. Their leaves and stems, covered in microscopic hairs and wax, act as natural conductors. Each blade of grass, each bean sprout, quietly collects electrical charge from the air, while roots buried in the earth connect to the negative pole of this giant natural battery. The plant becomes a living antenna bridging sky and soil, and this flow is measurable. A copper rod driven into the ground will register a faint current, proof that the air and earth are exchanging charge even on a calm day. Early experimenters like Christofleau asked a simple question: if every plant is already an antenna, what happens when you give it a better one? Copper wire is far more conductive than any stem or leaf. Planted in the ground, it can pull atmospheric charge more efficiently, channeling it right to the root zone. Inside every plant, a silent conversation unfolds in the language of electricity. Roots, stems, and leaves transmit tiny electrical signals called action potentials and variation potentials that ripple through cells, acting as messengers that trigger changes in growth, photosynthesis, and stress response. When a tomato leaf is wounded, an electrical wave travels down the stem, alerting distant cells to prepare defenses. Researchers have measured these signals with fine electrodes, and even a faint external field of a few microvolts per meter can spark a chain reaction. Some studies show that plants ramp up antioxidant production and activate resilience genes when exposed to an electrical gradient. Copper is also an essential micronutrient for plants, influencing photosynthesis and enzymatic reactions. Though excessive amounts can be toxic, the balance is everything in any agricultural application. The spiral, found everywhere in nature from snail shells to sunflower heads, became a key symbol in early electroculture because spirals act like antennas, gathering energy from a wide area and channeling it to a single point. The goal was never to force-feed plants with synthetic nutrients, but to unlock the electrical pathways evolution built into every cell. By the early 1920s, the business of growing food was about to change forever. Factories in Germany and the United States began churning out synthetic ammonia at a scale the world had never seen. The Haber-Bosch process, once a wartime secret, now filled train cars with bags of chemical fertilizer. Production soared from just over 1 million tons per year to nearly 20 million tons per year by 1960, driving ammonia's price from $100 a ton to under $30 a ton. But the real innovation was not in the chemistry. It was in the business model. Farmers who once relied on compost or a one-time copper wire now faced a new kind of contract. Buy fertilizer every spring or risk a smaller harvest. The subscription was built in. Each season, another purchase, each year, another invoice. In this new economy, a method that worked forever with a single piece of wire was not just an alternative. It was a threat. Editors and academics drew a line in the soil. Newspaper columns treated electroculture as a curiosity, leaning on words like miracle claims and eccentric methods, lumping Christofleau's work in with perpetual motion machines. Agricultural journals quietly closed their doors. University researchers, pressed for funding and wary of ridicule, steered clear of public support. The British Electro-Culture Committee's own findings, stamped not for publication, rarely reached the wider scientific world. By the late 1930s, copper wires and atmospheric energy had been reduced to footnotes and folklore. For nearly a century, the old claims had no hard backing, until a trial larger than 6,000 football fields changed that. In recent years, the search for proof moved from old patents and garden photos to vast stretches of farmland. In China, researchers at the Chinese Academy of Agricultural Sciences set out to test atmospheric electricity on a scale never attempted before. Their experiment covered 3,600 hectares, larger than 6,000 football fields, using high-voltage wires suspended above the crops. The setup relied not on fertilizer or pesticides, but on harnessing the natural electric field between sky and earth, much as the early pioneers had imagined, but at a scale that could feed a city. The results were hard to ignore. Across the trial fields, yields climbed by nearly 30%. More wheat, more rice, more vegetables without adding a single drop of synthetic fertilizer. The most surprising outcome was not just bigger harvests. Pesticide use dropped dramatically, in some cases by 70 to 100%. Farmers reported fewer insects and healthier plants even in regions where pests had once been impossible to control. This was not a backyard experiment or a lucky season. The Chinese Academy study brought electroculture into institutional science with numbers large enough to silence claims of coincidence. Many scientists remain skeptical. The mainstream view holds that data-driven methods and proven agricultural science must come first, and that promoting unverified methods could mislead farmers, especially in developing regions. An agricultural policy analyst put it plainly. While the potential is there, we must ensure we don't mislead farmers with unproven methods. And that is a fair point. But the China data is not anecdotal. It is institutional, replicated across thousands of hectares, and published. The global agricultural market is projected to reach around $11 trillion by 2027, according to Grand View Research. With that much money at stake, it is worth asking why a low-cost method backed by large-scale results still struggles for attention. Not every method works the same way or carries the same risk, and this distinction matters. The copper spiral used in passive electroculture relies entirely on the natural voltage difference between sky and soil. No external power source, no batteries, no wires plugged into the wall. The copper simply acts as a better antenna collecting the gentle charge already present. This stands in contrast to powered rigs that run high-voltage electricity through fields using transformers or generators at thousands of volts. Those have produced measurable results in controlled studies, but come with serious hazards: electric shock, fire, equipment damage, and danger from even a small wiring mistake. Passive copper spirals are as simple as a weather vane, posing no electrical danger to people or pets. Confusing the two could lead to accidents or disappointment, so keep any home experiment firmly on the safe, passive side. Here is the practical build anyone can try this season. Start with a length of 14-gauge bare copper wire, about as thick as a sturdy paperclip. As of 2023, copper prices hover around $4 per pound, meaning one spiral costs less than a cup of coffee. Wrap the wire into a loose spiral 5 to 20 centimeters in diameter, using a wooden dowel 12 to 16 millimeters wide as a form to keep it even, with at least 3 turns spaced so air and light pass through. Drive the dowel into the soil so the spiral sits 10 to 15 centimeters deep, with the top pointing just above the surface. The tip must face magnetic north. A cheap compass does the trick. Do not skip this step. The Earth's telluric currents flow north to south, and orientation can mean the difference between a healthy boost and no effect. Position the coil 10 to 20 centimeters from the base of your plant. Tomatoes, beans, and squash respond well, but some gardeners report the most dramatic results with leafy greens. Track height, leaf size, and pest activity every 2 weeks. Take photos and weigh your harvest. One grower in Ohio logged a 40% increase in lettuce yield with fewer aphids and no powdery mildew, keeping everything else the same and using just one copper spiral per row. The method is safe, silent, requires no electricity beyond what nature provides, and works all season long. If you garden, would you try a copper spiral on one row this season? Tell me in the comments what you tested on. Global fertilizer use tops 185 million tons a year, while soil health declines and costs soar. Small-scale experiments through the 2010s and into the 2020s have appeared in niche agricultural circles, and by 2021, social media platforms drove wider conversation around these methods. By 2023, online interest in alternative practices had surged, though mainstream scientific channels remained skeptical. The real question is not whether electroculture works everywhere, but why simple low-cost experiments threaten trillion-dollar industries. When free energy meets corporate resistance, progress slows for everyone. The harvest of the future depends on what we dare to rediscover. What would you try if profit wasn't in charge? Subscribe so this knowledge doesn't disappear again.